The colonel publicly humiliated her. What she did next shocked the base. The morning sun hit the tarmac at Maxwell Air Force Base like a blade of glass, sharp and unforgiving. Second Lieutenant Emma Lark adjusted the brim of her patrol cap as she stepped out of her truck. The base smelled like jet fuel, oil, and discipline. She'd learned to love it. At 27, Emma was a logistics officer, one of those jobs most people overlooked until something went wrong. Her days were filled with manifests, maintenance orders, and fuel ratios. Not glamorous, not loud, but vital. Her job was to keep missions moving, and she was damn good at it. She had been raised in Wichita, Kansas, daughter of a mechanic and a nurse. She'd joined the Air Force not to be a hero, but to matter, do something that counted. Over 5 years, she'd built a quiet reputation for being steady, calm, and fair. But on this particular morning, calm wouldn't be enough, because Colonel Victor Harding was in charge. Harding was one of those officers whose name carried weight, the kind that made rooms fall silent. Decorated, respected, and feared. He had the kind of leadership style that people in the lower ranks privately called old school. That was polite talk for cruel when he wanted to be. He didn't like mistakes. He didn't like excuses, and he didn't like being challenged, especially by someone younger, newer, and female. It started over something as small as a late fuel shipment. Emma had stayed until nearly 2,300 hours the night before, sorting out a scheduling conflict between 2 refueling crews. The delay was out of her hands. Bad weather grounded a transport out of Pensacola, but it landed on her desk anyway. By 0700, Harding wanted answers. She arrived in the command conference room with her notes, hoping data would calm him. It didn't. The room was full of senior staff, majors, captains, a few enlisted techs. Harding stood at the head of the long table, jaw locked, sleeves rolled up, pointing at the whiteboard that displayed a spreadsheet of missed refueling times. "This," he barked, slamming a folder down, "is your department, Lieutenant Lark. You tell me why a 12-hour delay just cost us $300,000 in downtime." Emma straightened, pulse steady but stomach tightening. "Sir, the refueler out of Pensacola had an engine issue on departure. FAA grounded them. I called maintenance directly. I didn't ask what they did, Lieutenant. I asked what you did. I rerouted the secondary tanker from Tallahassee and secured a third from civilian contractors. Harding's tone snapped like a whip. "You outsourced Air Force operations to civilians. Only the transport legs, sir. It was within protocol, under protocol." Harding's voice rose. "You think hiding behind paperwork fixes failure." The room was silent. Emma's hands were clasped tight behind her back. "No, sir. I take full responsibility for the delay." Harding paced. "Responsibility," he repeated, almost tasting the word. "That's good, because I'm holding you responsible. You'll brief the entire maintenance division at 1,500 hours. You'll explain why your section failed, and you'll do it in front of everyone." She swallowed hard. "Yes, sir." When the meeting ended, the officers filed out without a glance at her. That's how it went. Nobody wanted to stand next to the person in Harding's sights. It was career suicide. Only Captain Miles Torres, her friend from Flightline Operations, lingered by the door. "Emma," he said quietly, "this isn't on you. Everyone knows the storm grounded half the eastern routes. I'll handle it," she said. Her voice was calm, but her hands trembled when she picked up her folder. He hesitated. "Be careful. Harding likes to make examples." The briefing room was packed. Over 100 airmen and officers sat shoulder older, the air heavy with tension and coffee. Harding stood in the corner, arms crossed. Emma stepped up to the front, set her laptop down, and pulled up the fuel distribution data. "Good afternoon," she began, steady voice hiding the storm inside. "I want to address yesterday's delay and the corrective actions moving forward. Start with your mistake." Harding interrupted. She paused. "Yes, sir. My section failed to anticipate the grounding out of Pensacola." Louder, Lieutenant. She raised her voice. "My section failed to anticipate the grounding out of Pensacola." Louder. Now the entire room was staring. Her cheeks burned. "My section failed to anticipate the grounding out of Pensacola," she repeated. Harding smiled thinly. "There we go. Accountability." He leaned against the wall, watching her like a predator watching its prey. For 20 minutes she presented every detail: weather data, routes, communication logs, fuel ratios. Her logic was airtight, her tone professional, but it didn't matter. Harding interrupted again. "You've clearly rehearsed this. Tell me, Lieutenant, when you sit there making excuses with all your pretty charts, do you think the pilots waiting on the runway care about your weather data?" "No, sir," she said softly. "Then maybe next time, don't hide behind your spreadsheet." A murmur rippled through the audience. It was a humiliation, public, deliberate, and cruel. She finished her report in silence, dismissed herself, and walked out without looking up. Behind her, someone muttered, "That was rough," and another whispered, "Harding's losing it." She didn't hear much else. Her ears rang. Her heart was somewhere between anger and shame. That night, she sat alone in the dim barracks common room, staring at her untouched coffee. Miles found her there. "Emma," he said quietly, sitting across from her, "you don't have to take that. He's my commanding officer. He's out of line. There's a difference." She didn't respond. Miles leaned in. "You know, people talk about integrity a lot around here. Harding used to be respected, but lately he's been snapping at everyone. Something's off." Emma rubbed her temple. "If I file a complaint, it'll look like I'm whining." "Not if you have evidence?" She looked up. "Evidence?" He nodded. "Every one of those meetings is recorded. Base Regulation 41-12B audio logs for accountability briefings. If Harding's humiliation crosses protocol, that's grounds for review." Emma thought about it. "I don't want revenge. I just want to do my job." "That's exactly why you should do it right." 2 days later, she requested access to the recording logs under AFTER, Action Review. It was standard. No one suspected anything. When the digital file arrived, she sat alone in her office, headphones on, and pressed play. She listened to her own voice tremble under Harding's interruptions, to his condescending tone, his repeated orders to speak louder, his sarcastic applause at the end. It was worse hearing it objectively. There was no professionalism in his voice, only cruelty. She didn't send it to anyone that night. She just sat in silence, the cursor blinking over the playback bar. For a moment, she wondered if maybe she was overreacting, if this was just how the military works. Then she remembered her father's voice when she'd told him she was enlisting. Never confuse rank with right. The next morning, she submitted the recording with a detailed incident report directly to the Inspector General's office. Weeks passed. Whispers spread. Harding seemed unaware or unconcerned. He kept up his drills, inspections, and impossible demands. Then, one afternoon, the base commander, Brigadier General Karen Fields, arrived unannounced. She was a composed woman. sharp-eyed, known for fairness. She gathered the senior staff in the same room where Harding had humiliated Emma. "This won't take long," Fields said, folding her hands behind her back. An internal review was conducted regarding conduct in the logistics division. Harding frowned. "Ma'am, I wasn't informed. That's the point." She cut in. "You weren't supposed to be." A few officers shifted uncomfortably. Fields tapped the projector. "We've reviewed the recording of the April 14th briefing." Harding stiffened. Emma sat in the back, silent. Fields hit play. Harding's voice filled the room. "Louder, Lieutenant. You think hiding behind paperwork fixes failure. Don't hide behind your spreadsheet." When the recording ended, the room was dead quiet. Fields turned toward him. "Colonel, would you consider that professional conduct?" Harding's jaw worked. "Ma'am, it was a disciplinary exercise, an exercise that violated Article 93, cruelty and maltreatment. Public humiliation of subordinates is not leadership." He flushed. "With respect, General, the lieutenant's performance isn't on trial," Fields said firmly. "Your behavior is." The silence that followed was suffocating. Harding finally straightened. "Then I'll expect a formal hearing." "You'll have one," Fields said, her tone final. "Effective immediately. You're suspended from command pending review." The colonel froze. Around him no one spoke. Emma sat very still. She didn't gloat. She didn't smile. She just breathed. For the first time since the incident, she felt air in her lungs again. The investigation lasted 2 months. It confirmed multiple complaints, some old, some recent, about Harding's conduct. Officers who'd been silent now came forward. Enlisted airmen described similar humiliation and intimidation tactics. Eventually, Harding accepted an early retirement under administrative reprimand. It was quiet, almost anticlimactic. One day he was there, the next his office was empty, nameplate gone. Life on the base moved on, as military life always does. Emma never said a word publicly. She just kept doing her job, filing logistics reports, managing transport rotations, keeping her section running like clockwork. But people started treating her differently. Salutes came a little sharper. Conversations paused when she walked by, not out of fear, but respect. One evening, General Fields requested Emma's presence at headquarters. She entered the general's office, neat, minimal, a single photo of an F-16 mid-flight on the wall. "Lieutenant Lark," Fields said, motioning for her to sit. "I wanted to speak with you personally." "Yes, ma'am." Fields studied her. "You handled yourself with exceptional composure during this ordeal. I've read the transcripts. You never retaliated, never spoke ill of your superior. You followed procedure exactly." "I just did what I thought was right, ma'am." "Precisely," Fields said. "That's leadership. You've demonstrated moral courage, the kind that isn't taught in manuals." Emma blinked, unsure what to say. Fields smiled faintly. "The base has openings in operational planning. You'd be a good fit there. Consider this a field promotion." Emma's breath caught. "Thank you, ma'am." Fields stood and extended her hand. "And, Lieutenant, don't ever let someone convince you that silence equals respect. Sometimes the most loyal act is the one that challenges wrongdoing." Emma shook her hand firmly. "Yes, ma'am." The months that followed were the best of her career. She transferred to operational planning, leading a team of 8. Her professionalism became a model across departments. She even taught briefings on constructive leadership, emphasizing communication, integrity, and emotional discipline. One day, after a training session, a young airman approached her. "Ma'am," he said nervously, "I just wanted to say thank you. A few of us were there that day in the briefing. We didn't say anything. We should have." Emma smiled gently. You don't owe me thanks, Airman. You owe yourself courage next time you see something wrong. Won't wait for someone else to fix it. He nodded, eyes bright. Yes, ma'am. But one last surprise awaited her. A few months later, during the base's annual recognition ceremony, Emma was seated among other officers when the Master of Ceremonies announced, "The Air Force Commendation Medal for exemplary integrity in service is awarded to Lieutenant Emma Lark." She froze. General Fields stepped up to the podium. "Leadership isn't about rank," she said. "It's about courage under pressure, and doing what's right when no one's watching. Lieutenant Lark demonstrated both." Applause filled the hangar. Emma walked up, every step heavy with disbelief. When Fields pinned the medal on her uniform, she whispered, "You earned this the hard way." Emma smiled quietly. "I just did my duty, ma'am." Fields looked her in the eye. "That's what makes it extraordinary." After the ceremony, Miles found her by the flight line, where the sunset painted the tarmac orange. He grinned. Not bad for a quiet logistics officer. Emmy chuckled. "I guess paperwork matters after all," he laughed. "You didn't just fix fuel schedules, Emma. You changed the culture of this base." She looked toward the horizon, where a transport jet lifted off, its roar fading into the sky. "Maybe, or maybe I just reminded people what respect looks like." Miles nodded. "Either way, you shocked the hell out of the base." She smiled. "Good. Moral: true leadership isn't about authority, it's about integrity. Courage isn't loud. Sometimes it's just the quiet act of standing up when you're afraid and doing what's right when no one else will."